Welcome to our YouTube channel in the Incredible Stories niche, where we reveal heartwarming and inspiring stories. Today, we're going to travel to the snowy forests of the Carpathians, where a pregnant woman lost in a storm met a pack of wolves. This fascinating saga of survival, kindness, and the unexpected connection between humans and wildlife will show how the instinct to protect can unite even those who are considered enemies. Get ready for a story that will make you cry, shiver, and believe in miracles. In December 2023, 29-year-old Solomia Vojtovich lived in the Carpathian Mountains, where the pine trees were covered in snow and the wind sang ancient songs. Her long brown hair, green eyes, and warm smile made her a favorite in the village of Lisna, which nestled at the foot of the mountains. 8 months pregnant, Solomia was expecting her first child, a girl she planned to name Zoria after the star that shone above the mountains. Her husband, 32-year-old Taras, a forester, often left home to check the trails and protect the forest from poachers. Despite being pregnant, Solomia loved to accompany him, but this time Taras insisted that she stay home because of an impending snowstorm. Solomia was not the type to sit idly by. Her grandmother, 78-year-old Maria, had taught her to understand herbs, read animal tracks, and listen to the forest. When Taras didn't return by evening, Solomia became worried. The phone was not picking up a signal, and the radio was broadcasting a warning of a severe storm. "He's in trouble," she whispered, touching her stomach, where Zoriana kicked lightly. Solomia put on a warm jacket, took a lantern, a knife, and a rope, and left a note. "I went to look for Taras. Don't worry, Maria." She stepped into the forest, not knowing that this night would change her life. The snow was falling in thick flakes, and the wind was howling, drowning out all sounds. Solomia was walking along the path Taras used to take to return home. But the storm had erased the traces, her boots got stuck in the snowdrifts, and the cold penetrated her woolen scarf. An hour later, she realized she was lost. The lantern was flickering, the battery was running low, and Zoriana was moving as if she could sense her mother's fear. Solomia leaned against a pine tree, whispering, "We'll make it, my star." Suddenly, a low, long howl came from the darkness, making her heart sink. Wolves. Carpathian wolves were famous for their strength and elusiveness. The locals called them spirits of the forest, believing that they guarded the mountains. Solomia knew from Taras that wolves rarely attacked humans, but a lone woman in a storm was easy prey. She clutched the knife, but her hands shook from the cold. The howls grew closer, and eyes appeared from behind the trees. 5 pairs glowing in the dark like stars. A pack of wolves, led by a huge gray she-wolf with a white spot on her chest, surrounded Solomia. The wolf, whom Solomia mentally called Beliana, because of her white markings, stepped forward. Her eyes, amber and deep, looked not fierce but curious. The other wolves, 2 young males with gray fur, one with a twisted ear, and 2 slender females, stayed back. Solomia felt Zoriana push harder, and without knowing why, she spoke, "I am not the enemy. I want my husband." Her voice trembled, but it was calm. Beliana tilted her head as if listening and suddenly licked the snow at Solomia's feet. The wolves did not attack. They circled her, sniffing the air, and Beliana gently nudged Solomia with her muzzle, as if to invite her to leave. Despite her fear, Solomia felt a strange warmth. "Do you know where Taras is?" she whispered. The she-wolf moved forward, looking around, and Solomia followed, holding her stomach. The pack moved silently, making their way through the snow. A young wolf with a twisted ear, whom Solomia named Crooked, stayed close as if to protect her from the wind. The wolves led Solomia deeper into the forest, to a gorge where the path broke off over a frozen stream. The snow had been tamped down, and scratches were visible on the rock. Solomia noticed blood fresh, red, dripping onto the snow. Her heart sank. "Taras," she rushed to the tracks, but Beliana growled, stopping her. The she-wolf sniffed the air and led the pack to the side, to a cave hidden behind the branches of fir trees. Solomia found Taras in the cave. He was unconscious, with his bloody leg wedged between rocks. His rucksack was torn open and his rifle was lying by his side. Solomia knelt down to check his pulse. Taras was breathing, but he was cold as ice. "You're alive," she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. She realized that Taras had fallen into the gorge, trying to avoid the poachers, whose footprints she could see nearby, deep-treaded boots and the fragments of a trap. Bilyana lay down at the entrance to the cave, while Krivi and the other wolves patrolled the surroundings. Solomia rubbed Taras's hands to try to warm them up, and took a first-aid kit out of his backpack. She bandaged the wound, but knew that he would not survive without warmth. Zoriana moved as if to remind her mother not to give up. Solomia gathered dry branches that were lying in the cave, and, shivering, lit a fire with Taras's flint. The wolves did not leave. Their presence was strangely calming. The storm was getting worse, but the cave was providing protection. Taras regained consciousness, clutching Solomia's hand weakly. "How did you find me?" he wheezed. She told him about the wolves, and Taras smiled despite the pain. "Bilyana, I've seen her before. She lost a cub." Solomia shuddered, remembering how Bilyana had looked at her belly. The she-wolf who had lost her cub had recognized Solomia as a mother fighting for her life. Suddenly, Krivi growled, and the wolves became alert. Voices came from outside, rough and angry. Poachers, 2 men led by 40-year-old Roman, known in the area for illegal hunting, were approaching. They were looking for Taras, who had pulled off their lynx trap, and noticed smoke coming from the cave. "There's a forester in there and his woman," Roman barked, loading his rifle. Solomia held her breath as she clung to Taras. Bilyana stood up, her fur standing on end. The wolves slipped silently out of the cave, disappearing into the storm. Solomia heard screams. The poachers were in a fight with the pack. Bilyana and Krivi chased them away from the cave, using the snow and darkness. One of the poachers fired a shot, but the bullet hit a tree. Despite her fear, Solomia was relieved. The wolves were protecting them. Taras whispered, "Hold on, the rescuers will come." Solomia prayed while stroking her stomach. Zoriana kicked, and suddenly Solomia felt a sharp pain. A contraction. "No, not now," she begged, but she knew that labor had begun. She clenched her teeth, remembering Maria's advice, "Breathe, don't panic." Bilyana returned to the cave, her muzzle covered in snow, but her eyes shone with peace. The wolf lay down next to her, warming Solomia with her body. The birth was difficult. Solomia leaned against the cave wall, screaming in pain, but held on for Zoriana's sake. Taras, despite his weakness, held her hand, whispering words of love. Bilyana did not leave. Her warmth gave her strength. Krivi and the other wolves were patrolling, scaring away the poachers, who retreated, frightened by the pack. The howls of the wolves mingled with the howls of the storm, creating a mystical symphony. At dawn, when the storm had subsided, Solomia gave birth to a girl. Zoriana, tiny, with dark fluff on her head, screamed, announcing her arrival to the forest. Exhausted, Solomia hugged her daughter, wrapping her in her shawl. Bilyana licked Solomia's hand as if to welcome new life. Taras, in tears, whispered, "Our star." The wolves howled, their voices echoing through the mountains as if celebrating a miracle. The rescuers, led by 45-year-old Stepan, Taras's friend, found the cave following the wolves' tracks. They were amazed to see a pregnant woman, a wounded man, a newborn baby, and a pack of wolves guarding them. Stepan, who had a gray beard, said, "It was the spirits of the forest who saved you." The rescuers carried Taras and Solomia and Zoriana to the sled, and the wolves, led by Bilyana, disappeared into the forest. In the village of Lisna, Solomia's story has become a legend. Taras recovered, his leg healed, but he left his job as a forester to be closer to his family. Solomia, holding Zoriana, told Maria about wolves. Her grandmother, stroking her amber necklace, said, "Bilyana saw you as a mother. Wolves never forget a good deed." She gave Zoriana an amulet with a carved wolf carved out of wood. The poacher Roman was caught by the rangers, and his gang was broken up. Taras and Stepan set up cameras in the forest to keep an eye on the wolves, and found out that Bilyana had become a mother again, giving birth to 3 wolf cubs. Salomia named them Zvezda, Krivi, and Sniz in honor of their night in the cave. The cameras showed how Bilyana taught the cubs to hunt, and Krivi, with a twisted ear, became the leader of the young wolves. In 2024, Salomia founded the Wolfheart Foundation to protect the Carpathian wolves. She organized excursions for tourists, telling them about Bilyana and the forest. Zoriana, who was 1 year old, loved to listen to the wolves howling while clapping her hands. Taras carved a wooden wolf for her, which became her favorite toy. By 2027, Zoriana had become the soul of the forest. Her green eyes and brown curls reminded her of Salomia, and her curiosity of Taras. She adored the forest, holding an amulet with a wolf. Maria taught her how to recognize tracks, and Taras told her about Bilyana. Zoriana drew wolves, calling them friends of the star. One summer, when Zoriana was walking with Salomia near the gorge, she saw Bilyana. The gray-haired wolf was standing with 3 grown-up pups. Zoriana held out her hand with the amulet without fear. Bilyana sniffed it, and Krivi Jr. licked her fingers. Salomia and Taras froze, but the wolves did not attack. Zoriana laughed when Snow nuzzled his nose into her dress. "My wolves!" she exclaimed. The same year, Salomia's foundation funded the reserve. The cameras showed Bilyana teaching the wolf cubs to hunt, and Krivi Jr. protecting them from lynxes. Zoriana asked Taras to leave water for the wolves in the drought, and Salomia told tourists about the night of her childbirth. Bilyana, the star, and her puppies became a symbol of friendship. In 2028, Zoriana found an injured wolf cub by the river. His paw was in a trap that looked like a poacher's. The girl, remembering Maria's stories, calmed the baby down by covering it with a scarf. She ran to Taras, who, together with the rangers, freed the wolf cub, named Zoriana Luna. The cameras showed Bilyana reuniting with the moon, licking its face. Salomia, hugging her daughter, said, "You have a wolf's heart." By 2030, Zoriana had become the heroine of the forest. Her bravery in saving Luna inspired the villagers. But a new danger threatened the wolves. The poacher returned, setting poison baits to destroy Bilyana's pack for selling skins. One day, Zoriana was walking with Taras and noticed a strange smell near the trail, bait disguised as meat. "Wolves don't eat that," she exclaimed, remembering Maria's lessons on animal behavior. Zoriana convinced Taras to check the forest. They found 3 baits, and the cameras showed Krivi Jr. sniffing one, but moving away as if he felt threatened. Zoriana, clutching the amulet, said, "We have to save the wolves just like they saved me." She drew a map of the trails where she had seen wolf tracks and showed it to Stepan. The rangers, impressed, organized a patrol, and Zoriana insisted on going with them, promising to be careful. At dawn, Zoriana, Taras, and Stepan found a trap, a net, where Zoria, Bilyana's daughter, was stuck. The wolf was whimpering and her paw was bleeding. Zoriana stroked Zerka without fear. Taras cut the net, and Stepan treated the wound. Bilyana, watching from behind the trees, did not attack. Zoriana held out the amulet, and Bilyana licked her hand as if to thank her. The patrol tracked down the poacher and caught him with the poison. Zoriana testified to the rangers, describing the baits, and the poacher was arrested. The Wolfheart Foundation funded new cameras and patrols, and Zoriana suggested installing wolf zone signs to protect the pack. Her idea was supported, and signs with her drawing appeared in the forest. That summer, Zoriana organized a children's camp called Wolf Friends at the foundation. She taught her peers to recognize tracks, avoid traps, and respect the forest. During the hike, the children saw Bilyana with the moon, and Zoriana, holding an amulet, whispered, "We will protect you." The wolves howled, their voices echoing through the mountains. By 2030, Zoriana became Lisna's inspiration. Her painting Wolfstar, of Bilyana standing over a cave under a heart of stars, won a school exhibition. The Wolf Heart Foundation grew to finance nature reserves. A BBC documentary by Olena Litovin, Wolves of the Carpathians, won an award. One evening, the family heard a howl. Bilyana, with a gray muzzle, stood on a rock with Zoria, Krivy Jr., Snow and the Moon. Zoriana showed the amulet, and the wolves howled as if in gratitude. Maria whispered, "The forest has chosen Zoriana." Salomia, holding Teres's hand, knew that their daughter carried the spirit of the wolves of the Carpathians.
Subscribe to the channel and like it so that you don't miss interesting virtual trips to any corner of our planet. Thank you very much for watching our channel. See you soon.